son of promise in the natural know about the promise? He's 8 days old. Who's the promise for? Mama. Who is the promise? Jesus. Mama knows the promise, and the promise don't know the promise. Mary and Joseph find Jesus in the temple. Now, I don't know about you, but my mom is from the hills of Mississippi. And when she tells you to be somewhere and you ain't there, you need to wish that you were there. Well, Jesus was gone for 3 days, and he didn't ask permission. And he was 12. There was a rule in my house that when I went out on a date, when I began to date, for every minute I was late, it cost me 15 minutes on the next date. If it was 12 o'clock and I came in at 12:05, 15 minutes for those 5 minutes. Every minute was 15 minutes. I missed some dates. But Jesus said to them, but didn't you know, don't you remember the promise that I would be at my Father's business and be in my Father's house? And the 12-year-old Jesus was a little bit frustrated that his mama had forgotten the promise. That verse is before this verse. We get here afterwards, Luke 2:51. Jesus says this, but he submitted and he went with them. He's a good little boy. It says, and Luke chapter 2, verse 51. And his mother treasured all these things in her heart. See, God is so good. He keeps that, he stirs that promise. Stirs the remembrance of that promise. And some of us, our mamas are gone. They're not here anymore. Well, guess what? Jesus and Mary both, and Joseph and Elizabeth and John and all of them are gone from this earth. But the promise remains. Jesus will take the throne as it has been promised. You see what I'm saying? Treasure them in your heart. So the Magi, another thing, after coming to the house, saw the child with Mary. Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. I got to remember for the audio to tell you what verse I'm working at. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. And they fell on the ground and worshipped him. Now, the way I read it, the way I studied it, is probably about 2 years old, somewhere around there. I don't know if that proved that, but he's not old enough to make a lot of decisions at 2 years old. Okay, so he's got goo-goo, poop in his drawers age, right? So who is it for? I mean, still, Jesus is 2 years old. He doesn't know what's going on. My niece is 2 years old. She's got a little piggy bank. Every time I give her a little money, I know why my pockets don't jingle anymore, because I have no change, because it's all in her piggy bank. But you know what? She doesn't understand the money. The money doesn't mean anything. You know what the money is to her? It makes a neat sound when it hits the bottom of the piggy bank. And she laughs and she likes it, and she's glad when TT and Tio, that's aunt and uncle for you English gringo folks. Take her any coin, it don't matter, pennies, it could be a washer. She don't care. I tried it. There's a washer in her piggy bank.
Now that's pretty cheap. That's pretty cheap now.
But I just want to see what the reaction was, right? And she laughed the same way. So a little perspective here. Jesus is 2. And opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now what's a 2-year-old going to do with that? I mean, did Jesus say, okay, well, I got me some gold. I'm going down to the bank. I'm going to buy me some CDs and invest in the stock market. And he's 2. The Father delivered the promise again to Mama. Jesus is the promise, but the promise is for Mama. Hudson, I'm ready for you. Bring your chair. Sorry. Same tree.
Same tree.
Turn this way.
I think it's white.
We'll sit here, facing the crowd. Okay, so the title, Mary at the Cross. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for your help. So, Hudson, Reed, whoever you are. Some gringo.
Sorry.
Give him the washer.
Reed is Jesus in this picture.
That takes faith.
So, Reed is the promise. Jesus is the promise. Mary at the cross. Just prior to that, there was a trial. We all know about the trial. What I want you to do is I want you to bring your forearms and lay them on the chair and clasp your hands like this. The promise's hands are bound. And he's tied to a scourging post. And Mary's there.
Daddy! Daddy!
So just look at him a second. He's tied to the post. His hands are tied together. That's your child. That's your promise. You are Mary. Mary is looking at her promise. What do you think of your promise now? The enemy says. Watch me slap him. What about your promise now? Ha 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 ha. You hear him laugh. Mary says, but Father, Gabriel said, ah! What about your promise now? They whip him again. Father, they're going to kill my promise. You promised me. You sent the angels. You sent Elizabeth. You sent the Magi. You sent the shepherds. I treasured in my heart. I believed. Joseph took the dream. He believed the dream. He supported me. He's been my foundation. Father, they're killing my promise. I don't understand. Father, they are beating my promise to death. What are you doing? The scriptures in John 19:25, but standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother. Stand it for me. Put your hand. Jesus is up there and he says, behold your mother. Behold your son. What about the promise now? Where's the promise? The promise is dying. The promise is going to die.